Hi everyone, I'm Tess from the Indian BlockPrint company and I'm here with your March subscription box block printing workshop video. Now our March box was all about printing beautiful spring stationery. So let's unpack what's inside your subscription box and then we'll get started. So inside you should have some packaging paper. You could always flatten this out and use it for some of your test printing. That might be a good way to start off practicing with your design. But inside you should have 2 acrylic paints. So you've got a lovely purple cow colour and a Hauser light green. Now these are acrylic paints, so these are for paper only. You've got 2 sponge dabbers, which we'll be using later. You've got your printing block, which is packaged. Now this is a lovely floral design. Again, more paper that you could print later. But you've got this lovely block. And this is what we're going to be using the 2 colours on. And then your materials. So we've got a whole selection of materials that you guys are going to be printing. So first of all, we've got 6 lovely, large, high quality white luggage tags. You've got 3 of our brand new note cards and envelopes. These haven't been printed by anyone yet, so you're going to be the first to try these. These are lovely, really high quality, and we're going to be showing you how to print them in a little bit. You've then got 4 small white cards and envelopes. You've got 4 larger white cards and envelopes. You've then got a notebook, a lovely craft notebook, again with lovely high quality pages inside. And then you've then got a small pack of tissue paper. So that's everything that's included in your box. And I'm going to be showing you how to print all of these items today. Now, there's not a particular pattern or anything you need to follow. This is all about printing beautiful spring stationery. So you can follow whatever pattern or design you'd like. During this video, I'm going to be showing you how to print all of the items that I've just taken out of the box. So I'll be sharing with you tips that are really important to get good results. I'll be showing you ways in which I've printed my stationery, and you can follow that or you can come up with your own design. So this is quite like a freestyle project, but I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of important tips and tricks. Now, other important printing equipment you're going to need your foam printing mat as always, you're going to need a paint tray and a rag. So that's everything you're going to need to get started. So I'm going to set up my desk ready for printing and we'll get started. Now, what's really important to do before you get started with this project is to give your printing block a good wash under the tap with hot soapy water. So you can see most of the white paint has come away from the block, which is actually a really good thing. That kind of softens the surface of the block and allows it to absorb a little bit of the paint, which means it should result in better prints. So you do want to give it a really good wash so you have none of that remaining white paint on there. And then make sure you give it a good dry off, and then that's ready for printing. Now on my palette, I'm going to put a blob of both of the colours. So I've got my lovely purple cow, and then I'm going to just put a blob of the Hauser light green. Now I thought these 2 colours were really lovely for this spring project. They both work really well together. These are available in fabric paints as well as part of our So Soft range. So if you wanted to get the same colours in fabric paint for your fabric printing, that would work really well. But also from our own range, possibly leafy green and violet, that would be a really lovely combination. Now, before we get started on the stationery printing and I share with you tips for this, it's really important to test your block first, as you all know. So I'm just going to be testing on some plain paper. You could also use a little bit of scrap fabric if you don't have any paper to hand. The acrylic paint isn't washable, but it will come out on the fabric. But I'm just going to do a few test prints on here. So what I'm going to do is get my dabbers both wet. And I'm going to have one for the purple and one for the green. So I'll apply the green first because this is the largest area. So always using the dabber flat. What you've got to remember is when we start to do 2 colour printing, quite often I see workshop guests and things start using the edge of the dabber and not using the dabber flat because you're trying to be so precise, you don't want to mix the colours. But then you end up not getting enough paint on. So that'll be really important with this project, making sure that you're confident enough with the 2 colour application and that you're getting good quality prints. So I've inked up there, so I'm going to turn it upside down and give it a wiggle. Now it's a relatively big block, so I'm going to use one hand and just get the movement all over and then lift it up. Now that looks beautiful, as you can see. And remember, you've got to apply a nice fresh coat of paint each time. So when you get to the part where you're going to do the other colour, like I said, don't use the corner or start brushing the paint on. Still use it flat, but just be quite slow and precise with where you're putting it. I like to tap all over a couple of times to get a nice coverage. And then the purple on top. Now, the lovely thing about this block is it kind of twists and turns really easily. So on your practice fabric or paper, have a go at using it in different angles and things, and just get a feel for the block and how you're going to be printing with it. I really love this. I mean, obviously we're doing stationery printing, but I'm thinking about all the projects I could do on fabric with this block. I think a scarf could be absolutely beautiful with this design kind of crawling up it. That would be lovely. And you can also try with other colours if you have other colours at home. You may already have quite a large paint selection now, so you can have a go with other colours. But my prints are all coming out really well. And I like to twist and turn the block. I like to not print it in the same way each time. And that kind of adds to the pattern and keeps it kind of flowing. So the way to make sure you do that is just by not printing in the same direction each time. Every time you lift it off and put it down again, change the direction of the block. And that will give you a really nice kind of flowing floral look. Now, you may have printed stationery before, or you may not, but like I said, I'm going to share with you tips for this project and just help you to get the most out of your printing and out of the items that are in your box. So first of all, let's start with gift tags. Now, these are really high quality white, kind of maybe slightly off-white luggage tags. Now, these are quite hard, they're quite solid, so when you print them, you'll really need to make sure you give them a good wiggle. Now, because of the size of the block, it might hang over the edge slightly. So what I tend to do is put a piece of paper underneath me, and that will catch any paint from going off the edge. And you can see it, you could probably twist it so it fits perfectly. So let's try this one. Let's position this block perfectly on the tag, so we get the whole print in. You can imagine this would make a really lovely gift tag on just a plain bag, or on a plain present. It would be lovely. So I'm going to position this just at the bottom of the gift tag, so the whole block is on there. Now, with something like this, what I'd always say is give it a wiggle, and once you think you've wiggled it enough, wiggle it even more, because you really need to make sure you're getting all the edges. And because this is a lot harder surface than the paper we were just printing on, you need to make sure you give it even more pressure, and then lift it straight up like that. There you go, that looks lovely. So that's just straight in the middle. Now let's have a go at doing one where the print falls off the edge. Now you can work out how much of your print is going to be on the material and just ink up that part of the block. But I find it's easier maybe just to ink up the whole block. And then I'm just going to hang half this design off the edge, and the paper underneath is going to catch the print. So again, double wiggle, make sure you wiggle it enough, and then a bit more. So there we go, that's kind of falling off the edge there. Then what I might do is do another block coming in slightly higher. So I'll show you what I mean by inking up just half the block. I'm just gonna ink up the top half of the design because I know the bottom half isn't gonna touch it. So I've just inked up this half, and then I'm gonna hold it over the edge. And again, double wiggle like that. And then let's do another one on the other side. Just the bottom half of the block this time, just the green leaves, like that. So you can see by doing that, I've got 3 prints on there, just little bits of each, which is a really nice effect and gives you like an aura all over floral design. So that's really nice. Now that's kind of 2 styles of gift tags I showed you. So those might take a little bit of getting used to. Now, if you get any kind of little half prints or imperfections in the print, try not to worry about it. That's just part of the block printing look. And you can get more imperfections with your prints on stationery we find more than fabric because it's a little bit less forgiving than the material. But I'll show you a couple of tricks for touching bits up later, but I think it kind of adds to the rustic charm of the paper printing. So there's my lovely tags. So I'm going to wait for those to dry like that. So leave them there. I'll take my scrap paper away, and then let's have a go at some of the cards now. Now you've got 8 different cards. You've got a larger white size and a smaller white size. So those are lovely cards. So let's have a go at printing these. So I think with this square one, these are just some small ones. This would make a really lovely like little thank you card, or a little birthday card, or, you know, even like an Easter card would be really nice. Now I was thinking this block fits really well in the middle of this card, so I'm going to print it right in the middle of the small square one. Now when you're card printing, what's really important is to always print the card open. If you print it closed, you've got a double hard surface there, so always print the card open. And again, we follow the same rule with this. We always double wiggle the block to ensure that you're getting enough contact between your block and the paper so you get a good print. So I'm going to tap the paint on. Now, sometimes I get asked if the paint can dry while you're putting it on, which definitely is the case. So you do want to apply the 2 colours quite quickly, one after another. If, for example, I get distracted and have to walk away, I always apply a fresh coat of paint, otherwise it may have dried in that time. So I'm going to turn this upside down and get it in the very middle of my card. And again, like I said, double wiggle, side to side, up and down. Get all the edges. And then pull it straight up. There we go. So that looks really beautiful, actually. I think that's a really lovely little gift card that you could give to somebody. And you've got your envelope that goes with it, which you could also print. Let's add a half print to the corner of the envelope, just something coming off the edge. I'm going to just tap half the block with paint. Now, hopefully that will be a new tip to some of you. Sometimes it's those really kind of simple things that you think, oh, why didn't I think of that before? But it may save you a bit of paint if you're only printing half the block. So again, another wiggle. I'm leaving room on the envelope to add my name. But something like that, just on the corner, that can really add to the envelope. So that looks really beautiful. And let's have a go at the bigger one. So for the bigger size card, I was thinking you could do a print right in the middle again, and you might have room for some text or anything. But I think I'd like to print this design all over. So again, what we can do is use our scrap paper here. Now you could just print all over the card and not worry if the back of it is a little bit messy. But if you want to keep it really neat, use your scrap paper again. And I'm just going to cover up the back part of the card like that. And I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath me to catch any paint that goes off the edge. And that just keeps your printing surface or your table or your mat really clean. So remember, you could, what you might think is have it folded in half and then do the prints off the edge. But again, you've got a double hard surface then because your card is folded over. So keep it open. Put a piece of paper over the back of the card like that, and then one underneath you. So then for this, I'm going to do one full print in the middle. I like to start in the middle and work my way out when I'm doing cards. You don't want to run out of space. So I'm going to do that and then put the purple on. So I'm going to do one full print in the middle. Again, double wiggling. So I'm getting all the edges and then up. And then I'm going to reapply my paint. Now you may find that acrylic paint feels a little bit more difficult to print with than maybe fabric paint that you've used in the past. It is a little bit thicker and it can clog up your block slightly. So if you do feel like your block is getting slightly clogged, just make sure you stop and give it a wash. Even if you're printing a whole load of cards, every 5 or 6 cards, maybe stop, give it a wash with a nail brush and hot soapy water. get the paint out the detail, and then it should start printing clear again. So there we go, that paper has, oh gosh, that was close. Don't do that, don't drop your block. But see, that paper has caught that paint that's come off the edge, keeping the back of my card really neat. So I'm going to keep going with this design. And this is kind of where you need to use that technique that I showed you earlier, always moving the direction of the block. You don't want them all to face the same way. So remember to keep twisting your block and printing it in a different direction to the last one. I'm going to go around the edge of this card and I'll show you how it looks at the end. And that's my last print. So I'm going to lift that up and then I'll remove the painted paper from underneath me. And I probably wait for this to dry before folding it, but you can see there, I've got this lovely all over pattern with the half prints coming off the edge, which really adds to the design. And I've also managed to keep the back of my card nice and clean, so it gives that kind of professional, lovely printed look. And then I'll wait for that to dry and then I'm ready to write on the inside. So that's a really lovely way to do an all over pattern. And just by using that paper underneath you and on top of the other side, you can get this lovely kind of over the edge printed look, which I think works really well with this design. So what I might do now is also do a print on the corner of my envelope, which I've got here. So I might be able to fit a whole one on the corner. Now I love printing the envelopes. I think it just adds something really special to the card, and it just adds that kind of extra look, which I really like. I love receiving a printed envelope. You know, it really just adds something a bit more detailed to it, because plain envelopes can be a little bit dull. So this block kind of feels to me like it's got one straight edge, so I might actually print it in the left hand corner. And let's see how that looks. Again, I've still got room for my address or my name on the envelope. There we go. So that looks really beautiful, actually. That's going to make a really nice set to go together. Now, don't forget, you've got 4 of the small cards and envelopes and 4 of the large, bigger ones. So you can make a whole array of them. If, for example, you go wrong on a card, what you can always do is print the rest of it and then cut them out to make gift tags and things. Now, I've still got a couple of imperfect prints on here, but again, I don't mind because it adds to the rustic look of the card. But again, I will show you later a couple of tips for touching that up. I'm going to put my lovely cards aside to dry. And then the next item in the pack that I wanted to show you was the 3 beautiful note cards you have. Now, these are new in, we haven't launched these yet, so you guys are the first to try them, which is exciting. So hopefully you'll love them. Now, these are a really beautiful quality card. It's almost like watercolor paper, and that's your note card. So we're going to print the front of it, and then you can leave the back to add a note, or you could even make it into a postcard or something. But these are really beautiful quality that also come with an off-white natural envelope, so you can gift them. It feels like, you know, like wedding kind of quality. It's lovely. They could make really lovely handmade invitations or something. But you've got 3 of these to print on. Now, I would do these after you've printed your cards, because these are really lovely and you don't want them to get ruined. And you'll have the confidence from printing your tags and your cards and your practice paper, and then you'll feel really confident when you get to these. Now, the way I've printed them, again, is in the all-over design, which I showed you previously just on the card before. So you'd want to use your piece of scrap paper underneath there to catch the prints going off the edge. But that looks really lovely, and the back is clean and ready to write on. But one thing I really enjoyed doing was printing and leaving a gap so that I could add some writing or something to the card. So I'm going to show you how I did that. And I've actually got some little stamps I'm going to use, but this is just an area that you could then personalize with a name if you've got lovely writing, or you could even stamp something there. So I'm going to show you how I did that. And this is a new technique. I haven't done it on a video before or anything. I just saw it and tried it myself and absolutely loved the effect. So I thought I'd share that with you. So I've got my note card on top of a bit of scrap paper because I'm going to be printing off the edge. And then what I've done is I've cut out a little piece of paper. You could use a post-it note or something. The only thing I would advise is whatever you use is very thin. Otherwise it can affect your printing if you've got something hard. So I've got a very thin piece of paper. And I'm going to put that on top of my note card where I want my writing to be. And then you're going to print over the top of that. So you want to be quite careful with it. You might want to practice this first on some scrap paper, try printing over something else. But this is going to block off part of the card, leaving it blank. And then we can add our own name or personalization. So what I'm going to do is I've got my piece of paper in position. Like I said, if it's a post-it note or something, it's got a little sticky area, so it might hold itself down. But I'm just going to hold it with a finger. And I'm going to print straight over the top of it, making sure I'm really doing a really nice double wiggle because this is quite a high quality note card. It's quite thick. So you really want to make sure you're getting that pressure all over the block. You can see I'm using 2 hands for that, side to side, up and down. And then I'm going to hold the paper while I lift the block straight off, like that. And you can see there it's left a gap. So I'm going to do one more print, putting it back down in position. I think it was there. It probably is easier if you use something that sticks down, maybe even a little bit of masking tape or something that won't pull the paper up with it. That could work quite well. But again, I'm going to tap all over my block. And then I'm going to print in a different direction, straight over the top. I'm going to print the rest of this note card and then I'll show you how I'm going to personalize it. So I'm going to remove that. So you can see there I've got this clean box. So I'm going to print the rest of the note card and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. The lovely thing I find about this block is because it's got lots of different shapes around it, you can always find a point that will fit in the gap that you've created. So you can see that I've just used a little bit of the leaf there. I might just use the purple top and a leaf here for the last print. And there we go. So I have my lovely printed note card with this blanked out area. Now you could do your lovely handwriting there if you're very good with a pen. I'm not so good, but I did have these tiny little rubber stamps that I had in my art collection, which I think I've just got offline a few years ago. Just really diddy stamps. And I'm going to use them to print happy birthday across there. So if that's something you've got in your collection, in your art collection, that could be really lovely. You could use printing blocks, but actually I think you might need a bit more space for that. But just work out how much space you need for whatever you're going to do. You could even use stickers or something. But I'm going to stamp these across there and I'll show you the finished result. And there we go. As you can see, using my tiny, very diddy, they must be about 0.5 centimeters tall, I've managed to stamp happy birthday across my card. And that just gives it a lovely professional feel to it, which I really like. You could also add a name or something. I did try with my best handwriting. I wrote on this one, happy birthday, lots of love, which also looked beautiful. But you can see that that's just a different style of kind of blocking off and printing that actually you could try and hopefully you'll get a lovely result from. So I'm going to leave that to dry and that goes with my envelope. Now, like I said earlier in the video, little imperfections can appear more when you're printing on stationery, just because the surface you're printing on isn't as absorbent as the fabric. But I think it really adds to the rustic charm, and I don't think anybody will notice it. But if you do have any areas that are quite bad or haven't printed the way you want, what you can do is use a very thin paintbrush, and you can just touch up the areas that need doing. So here my leaf hasn't printed completely, but it's kind of quite helpful to have a very thin detailed paintbrush in your collection with your printing blocks in case you need it to do something like this. But that might be the difference between you throwing away your card and deciding it's definitely worth keeping. So just by doing that and filling in the small areas that needed it, I've been able to complete those little imperfect prints on my card. So what I'll do is leave that to dry now because it's quite wet. It may take a longer to dry than usual, but once it's done, it will be perfect and ready to give away. Now, next up in the pack, which I'm going to show you how to print, is your beautiful craft notebook. Now, this might be something you could use to give away if you want to give it as a gift, or you could keep it for yourself. Maybe you could create a journal of all the block prints that you have. You could print a page for each design. But I'm going to show you how I print mine. So when you're printing your notebook, again, print it open. So you always want to have it open because this is a very hard surface you're printing onto. And you print it in exactly the same way you would all your other stationery items. Hopefully these colours will show up well enough on the brown craft paper. But you print them in exactly the same way. Now you could do an all over design like I've shown you, or you could just do something on the corner. So I'm going to give that a wiggle. Like that. So hopefully you'll be able to see that on camera, but that's just a lovely, really rustic print. And what I really like to do is to print the pages. Now this can be a little bit time consuming because obviously the paint is going to be wet and you need to allow it time to dry before you print the next page. But what you could do alongside your other stationery printing is print a page at a time. So I'm going to just ink my block up. And you can find something to hold the page open for you. You know, even like a pair of scissors to weigh it down or something. But what I'm going to do is just print this on the inside page. Like so. And then what I'll do is I'll wait for those two prints to dry, and then I'll come back and I'm going to print every other page. But that's really nice on the inside of a notebook or something. It really adds detail to each of your pages. So that's a lovely idea. So that's what I'd suggest you do with the notepad. But like I said, just wait for each page to dry before folding it over and printing the next one. But I've got these two pages done. So what I might do is use my paint pot, put that inside to stop the two pages folding in and touching each other. And I'll leave that to dry, and when it's done, I'll print the next one. So that can be really lovely to try. I think things like that can make really nice gifts to give people. You know, if you gave someone a printed notebook, now they're really inexpensive to buy. You probably can find them in any of the local art shops and things or online. And if you print a couple of pages, that can really be a lovely gift for somebody. Now, the last item I've got to print is the tissue paper. Now, this was one of my favourite about this subscription box, is that the tissue paper looked absolutely gorgeous printed. You could wrap a gift in it, you could line a gift box with it. There's so much you could do, and it's absolutely gorgeous to print. If you haven't printed tissue paper before, you're in for a real treat because it looks lovely. It's very boutique-y looking, really classy, and hopefully you'll enjoy printing it as much as I do. So in your box, you should have 6 sheets. Now, I use 2 at a time. You don't want to wrap or anything with just one sheet of tissue paper because it's so thin, you'll see the item that's in it. But I find that 2 sheets work really well together and for printing. So I'm going to pull off 2 sheets. And that's what I'm going to print. So then I can use my 2 printed sheets to wrap something with, and that will be lovely. So the way you want to print tissue paper is there is normally a shiny side and a matte side, and you always want to print on the matte side. So make sure you find that and lay it on top of your foam mat. And then this is very delicate, so you want to be quite careful with it when you're printing. You don't want to wiggle your block too hard that you pierce the tissue paper. But you're going to print it in the same way, nothing special. You're just going to be quite gentle with it. So I'm going to tap the paint on and tap the 2 colours. And then when I put the block down, I'm going to hold the tissue paper with one hand, give the block a gentle wiggle all over. And then when I pull the block up, I'm going to make sure my other free hand holds the tissue paper down so that it doesn't pull up or rip. And there we go, that looks beautiful. So I'm going to carry on with this. I'll print half the sheet and show you how it looks. I gave my printing block a wash under the tap with hot water and a nail brush because I felt like it was getting a little bit blobby in the prints and they weren't printing as clear as some of my other prints. And washing it has really kind of given it a new lease of life. The print's coming out a lot clearer and a lot less splodgy now. So if you're using the same block over and over again, you may find that it starts to get a little bit clogged. So just stop and give it a wash, especially with acrylic paint because it is a little bit thicker. It clogs up your design a little bit more. Now, I'm always remembering to twist the design, never printing it in the same direction that I printed it last time, and that keeps that lovely floral flowing look. And here is my finished piece of printed tissue paper. Now, one thing I would say about your tissue paper is really be steady when you're printing it. There can be a slight slip, as with other stationery items. So just make sure you're putting the block down really slowly and you're applying even pressure all over in order to avoid the block slipping. Now, I'm going to leave this to dry and then it will be ready to line a gift box with, like I said, or to wrap a present in. So that's a really lovely design. Now, just to show you now that my notebook has dried, the front page and the first page are printed. So what I'll do is just gently and gradually go through and print every other page in the corner, and then that will be my lovely hand-printed notebook. So I really hope you've enjoyed your spring subscription box. I hope you've loved using this beautiful floral design as much as I have. And I hope you'll print a whole array of spring stationery, as well as other items such as fabric. I think that will look absolutely beautiful. I'm definitely going to be printing a scarf or a cushion cover next. So thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this month's project. Please let us know if you have any questions or would like any tips or anything. And hopefully we'll see you on the next box. Thanks very much.